Okay, it's Thursday, July 6th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with a kind of a gap down, two down day that sold off a little bit in the morning, but then brought some buying in and kind of closed near the highs of the day with a hammer look here. And so on this shortened week, kind of a few things are unfolding, a few potential things. I'll just describe the types of things I'm looking at because I don't really know exactly what's going to happen yet. I've been talking about how on the weekly chart, since you had a strong green week, you do expect the highs of that bar to be taken out. But you can see here with 1 day to go, it almost looks like we're going to end up with kind of a red inside, unless something really dramatic happens. The upside is kind of a red inside bar, and that can mean probing a little lower into next week first. Every time you have the inside bar, assuming we end up that way, I've talked about failures. Like here, we have the inside bar, we fail to the downside. If you come up through the midpoint of that bar, then you can feel comfortable getting long. It might be developing here. Another thing that I'm noticing is that maybe this high right here all along was the target, and we've reached that here on kind of the last day of the month, and maybe we're getting ready to come down and make lower lows below this pivot low, higher highs, lower lows. So in other words, this big green week at the moment doesn't have to necessarily follow through to the upside right out of the gates, since we seem to be, wanting to drift lower. We keep, going lower and getting some buying coming in, but at some point, given, the way price opens and relative to each bar, I might have to consider that we're going to be coming down and taking out that low. I kind of described that as in a in a recap video for the 6-month kind of recap video, how I think this low eventually will be taken out. So who knows, maybe we're doing that. So the answer is, since it's hard to say what the bias is, given that we're kind of red on the week and the month, the new month. In other words, we're red on the week, we are red to start the month. So I kind of have to be biased a little bit to the downside until that changes, until we get above that open. And we have this hammer bar here, but we can just be coming up tomorrow, maybe into this gap. And maybe we're not going to, if you do have a 2-up day, maybe we don't reach that target here, and then you eventually fail with a, I'm anticipating like coming to that gap and either immediately fail and come to the halfway point of that bar, maybe, into Monday of next week, getting a 2-up that doesn't reach its target. Then the 2 down is going to kind of start all of a sudden, probing below the inside bar low. And then we see if we kind of head all the way down there or if it kind of fails. So the answer is tough to say, what's going to happen next. I'm just going to have to use, as always, kind of my blue line pre-market range where price opens, and that'll begin to guide me as if we're really going to strongly, find buying in here and work back towards the highs, or maybe with the inside red day, I got to be a little bit more willing to kind of go short here if I see we're failing to the upside, knowing that this is kind of a target as well. So again, until I see this weekly chart really reverse in some way, I'm not going to get too bearish, but I do think there's potential pullback in play here, and maybe it's going to come on this inside red bar, follow through next week a little bit first. But I can't predict it. I still think in the end, until this really reverses here, until the monthly chart gets below the midpoint of that prior month, and even if at this point we didn't take out the highs yet, so we can come down, we can have a big inside red month in here, and then find out what happens into August. But it's tricky because we're inside and we didn't quite take out that high to fail. So we're still kind of expecting higher, and yet we're starting out red. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that for now. Today, I've discussed on a kind of a midday recap video, the trade, if you're going to trade it outright, was just to, expect a little bit lower after this opening, and the first bar went red, and you did have an hour and a half or so. And then if you, didn't get short there, the way I would have wanted to continue to get short, if we kind of had an orderly pullback maybe to the midway point and then turned down again to test those lows, but that never happened. We came all the way up. So this wasn't necessarily easy to trade or know what was happening, but this opening move certainly was, a good trade to the, a scalp trade in the morning hours. So anyway, let's see if this hammer bar follows through higher tomorrow. I'd go with that, but then I really want to see how it relate, how many pushes up it makes, and how it kind of reacts to this gap in here. And if we kind of begin to fail, then I'm almost going to think that maybe this was the higher high and we might be working towards the lower low. But that'll all depend on how price action unfolds. So that's kind of the recap for today. We'll see how the weekends tomorrow, and how this weekly bar looks. That'll kind of give an indication maybe of what to expect more for next week.